Shoghi Effendi was to have accompanied Abdu'l-Baha on his great Western tour of Europe and America from 1911 to 1913. The master had even bought Shoghi Effendi new clothes for the trip. In fact, Shoghi Effendi accompanied Abdu'l-Baha on the SS Cedric as it sailed from Alexandria in Egypt to Naples in Italy. But alas, Shoghi Effendi's hopes were dashed by Dr. Amin Farid, who later became a despicable covenant breaker and who had Shoghi Effendi put off the ship on a trumped-up health pretext. Shoghi Effendi remained behind with his great-aunt, Bahia Khanum, the greatest holy leaf. The master remembered Shoghi Effendi affectionately in letters he wrote to his sister, the greatest holy leaf, Bahia Khanum. Kiss the light of the eyes of the company of spiritual souls, Shoghi Effendi. Kiss the fresh flower of the garden of sweetness, Shoghi Effendi. With the return of Abdu'l-Baha to the Holy Land, Shoghi Effendi experienced some years of extreme joy. He was now Abdu'l-Baha's secretary and right-hand man. During World War I, the brutal Jamal Pasha, commander-in-chief of the Turkish forces, had vowed to crucify Abdu'l-Baha. Only the rapid British advance and the liberation of the Holy Land by General Allenby's victorious army prevented this monstrous act. After the war, Abdu'l-Baha was knighted by the British Empire for distributing food to the hungry, food that was grown on Baha'i land. In 1920, Abdu'l-Baha directed Dr. Lotfullah Hakim to accompany Shoghi Effendi to Oxford. We get a glimpse of how depleted Shoghi Effendi's nervous strength must have been when we learn that the master insisted that on his way to England he should go first to a sanatorium and take a good rest. This is the dormitory where Shoghi Effendi stayed at Oxford. Here we see some of the subjects that Shoghi Effendi took, though his overall interest was always to improve his English so that he could better translate for the faith. Though immersed in his studies, Shoghi Effendi made time to remain active in the British Baha'i community, associating with such well-known Baha'is as Dr. Ethelmont, Lady Blomfield, and Ethel Rosenberg. It's also interesting that he presented original papers at some of the feasts. Death is the most terrible interruption. The office of Major Wellesley Tudor Pole in London was often used as a distribution point for cables and letters to Baha'is. On 29 November 1921, at 9:30 in the morning, this cable reached that office. His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha ascended Abha Kingdom, informed friends, Greatest Holy Leaf. It is believed that Tutor Pol telephoned Shoghi Effendi, asking him to come at once to his office without telling him the news, which no doubt might prove too great a shock. When Shoghi Effendi arrived at Pol's office, the Major wasn't there. His eye, no doubt, caught a glimpse of the cablegram lying openly on the desk, and he read it. For when Tutor Pol entered the room a moment later, he found Shoghi Effendi in a state of collapse, dazed and bewildered by this catastrophic news. Shoghi Effendi was completely broken down. In his own words, quote, "The terrible news so overwhelmed my body, my mind and my soul, that I was almost senseless, absent-minded, and greatly agitated. I am immediately starting for Haifa to receive the instructions he has left, and have now made a supreme determination to dedicate my life to his service, and by his aid, to carry out his instructions all the days of my life." At that time, Shoghi Effendi could have no idea just how profound and earth-shaking those instructions would be, and how they would direct the course of his life for the next 36 years. Passport difficulties delayed Shoghi Effendi's departure from England until the 17th of December. More than 10,000 men, women, and children attended the funeral of Abdu'l-Baha. People of all classes, all beliefs, mourned the loss of this great one. On the 29th of December, 1921, Shoghi Effendi arrived in Haifa by train, accompanied by Lady Blomfield and his sister Ruhangiz. Amidst the swirling turmoil of those hours stood the only person who could in any measure assuage his suffering, his beloved great-aunt, the sister of Abdu'l-Baha, Bahia Khanum, the greatest holy leaf, the supreme woman of the Baha'i dispensation. By the time Shoghi Effendi arrived in the Holy Land, his beloved grandfather had already been entombed in the center of the 3 rooms adjacent to the inner shrine of the Bab. The family had searched in vain for burial instructions, and in searching they discovered his last will and testament, which was read on the 3rd of January, 1922. The will was addressed to Shoghi Effendi. It was composed of 3 wills, written at different times, and forming one document. In it, Abdu'l-Baha had designated him the blessed and sacred bough that hath branched out from the twin holy trees, whose shade shadoweth all mankind. He found himself described as the sign of God, the chosen branch, the beloved guardian of the cause of God, he unto whom all the Ogsan, the Afnan, the hands of the cause of God, and his loved ones must turn. This was now a very dangerous period in the history of the cause. After the passing of each of the 3 central figures of the faith, came the onslaught of the covenant breakers, seeking to gain some advantage for themselves. Even before Shoghi Effendi had reached the Holy Land, the greatest holy leaf had cabled America. Now is period of great tests. The friends should be firm and united in defending the cause. Covenant breakers starting activity through press, other channels, all over the world. Select committee of wise, cool heads to handle press propaganda in America. Greatest holy leaf. It didn't take long. Attacks came from old and new covenant breakers, from Abdu'l-Baha's half-brother, Mirza Muhammad Ali, from the disaffected, the lukewarm, the ambitious. They all began to stir up trouble.